Imagine something so powerful, herds changed direction without ever seeing it. So feared, forests fell silent just from its scent. So dominant, the planet itself bent around it. You're not visiting the age of dinosaurs. You're stepping into the age of one. Like, subscribe, and brace yourself, because this isn't science fiction, it's Earth's darkest truth. Let's go. Your eyes flick open, and the first thing you notice is the thickness of the air. It clings to your skin like wet cloth, buzzing with the wings of insects that shouldn't be this big. A dragonfly, the size of a pigeon, flits past your face, offended by your presence. You swat instinctively. It doesn't care. This isn't your world. It's older, wilder, meaner. And the earth beneath your feet trembles. Not an earthquake, not yet. Just something moving, something heavy. You crouch low into a bed of ferns that feel waxy and foreign. Around you, towering plants with alien shapes. Palm trunks spiraling like screws. Pineapple-shaped giants with leaves like swords breathe slowly in the dawn heat. You don't breathe, because something is coming. It pushes through the mist like a living statue, not marching, claiming. And there it is, Tyrannosaurus Rex. The name doesn't do it justice. On paper, it's just Latin, Tyrant Lizard King. But up close, it's less a name, more a curse. 40 feet of muscle and violence, each step lands with the sound of an ancient wardrobe dropped onto stone. Its tail sways like a wrecking ball. Its head, blocky, impossibly large, moves with surgical calculation. The eyes, forward-facing, binocular, not scanning, targeting. Its breath hangs in the air, meat and heat and rot. A scent that doesn't just say predator, it says monarch. It doesn't roar. Why would it? Kings don't make announcements. They expect you to already know. Everything else around you already knows. A flock of edmontosaurs, herbivores the size of vans, scatters like startled pigeons. A few agile raptors freeze, melt into the underbrush. Even the ancient crocodilians in the stream go still, like stone sofas with eyes. The world is holding its breath, because the ruler is awake. And here's your first reality check. You don't belong here. You're a mammal, a soft-bodied, wide-eyed night thing. This world wasn't designed for you. This age didn't plan for your arrival. You're a tourist in a nightmare, a heartbeat in a drumline. You try to move quietly, carefully stepping over a rotted log, your hand brushing against a mushroom the size of a basketball. But it's no use. This forest isn't just loud, it's alert. Even in your silence, you feel the ecosystem resisting you. And then the T-Rex turns. Not toward you. Not yet. Just pausing. Sniffing. Its nostrils, larger than your fist, flare once, twice. A breeze shifts. So does your pulse. And then, movement behind it. A hadrosaur bursts from the trees, honking like a doomed clarinet. It makes it 6 steps. The T-Rex makes it 3. A blur, a quake, a sound like thunder through wet meat. Silence. You exhale. Not because you're safe, you're not, but because it's busy. You crawl backward, slowly. Every inch feels like borrowed time. Then you slip, your hand sinking into something soft and hot. A half-eaten protoceratops. Its eye socket stares up at you, empty, judging. Welcome to the dining room. Here's a disturbing truth. T-Rex didn't always finish its meals. Not because it was sloppy, because it didn't need to. When you sit at the top of the food chain, waste becomes luxury. And that luxury shapes the entire world. Scientists still argue, was T-Rex a lone ambusher, a pack hunter, a scavenger? The fossil record doesn't care about your labels. It tells the same story over and over. Femurs punctured by teeth the size of machetes. Bones scattered with no attempt to chew. Coprolites, yes, fossilized poop, laced with armor plates and shattered skulls. This isn't a predator. This is a grinder. A sovereign animal that hunted not just species, but ecosystems. What makes T-Rex terrifying isn't just its strength, it's the imbalance. Today's predators exist in webs. Wolves need deer. Lions need zebras. Sharks keep fish in check. But T-Rex? T-Rex breaks the web. Entire herds adjusted migration patterns, not in response to a chase, but to a rumor, a shadow, a smell. Fear as gravity, presence as law. And then you feel it, its gaze, passing over you, not settling, not hunting, just reminding you. You are not part of the equation. You are the leftover decimal in a planetary calculation. It turns back to its kill, bites once more, a sound like wet glass snapping. You turn and run, not far, just enough, high ground, a ledge of cracked stone. The noises fade behind you, no screams, no growls, just silence, as if the earth has resumed breathing. You sit, heart pounding, palms shaking, and all around you the forest dares to wake again. Tiny lizards scurry up bark. Birds, yes, birds, begin to call. Life returns, but only on the edges. You've just met the creature that once held Earth in its claws, and it's only morning. The forest isn't quiet anymore, but it's not loud either. It's the kind of sound you get after a storm passes. Branches dripping, leaves twitching, life slowly uncurling from where it hid. The monster is gone, for now, but you've learned something. When the world goes still, it doesn't mean peace. It means something terrifying just finished moving. You move slower now, wiser. The undergrowth clings to your ankles as you press deeper into a terrain that seems to hum with memory. Light stabs down in broken rays through the towering canopy. It paints the ground in streaks of gold and shadow. Each beam feels like a spotlight, and you're the unlucky contestant on nature's worst game show. Will the king see you? This place doesn't just look different, it feels older, thicker, as if the land itself remembers what walks on it and adjusts its breathing to avoid notice. Because the tyrant never really leaves, it just circles back. You reach a clearing, muddy, steamy, raw. At first glance, it's just a patch of earth. But then you notice the bones, shards, ribs, a vertebra twisted like a pretzel. Everything here screams one message. This is where the T-Rex sleeps. It shouldn't feel so shocking, but it does. Because here, in this steaming graveyard of leftovers, you see it in brutal clarity. The king didn't just patrol. He nested. He paused. He rested. He belonged. You edge closer, peering at the ground. And there it is, a jawbone, still embedded in the earth. Around it, several broken teeth. They're curved, serrated, like steak knives made by someone who hates steak. One tooth is cracked near the tip, as if it struck bone. That's the thing with T-Rex. It didn't nibble, it didn't slice, it crushed. Its bite force? Between 8,000 and 12,000 pounds per square inch. That's more than a modern alligator, more than a car crusher, more than you can imagine without visualizing your entire torso folding in half. You reach for one of the teeth. It's as long as your hand and twice as heavy as it looks. Around you, the silence grows suspicious. And then you see it, on the rock nearby. Scratches, long, deliberate, vertical gouges. Not claw marks from a scuffle, not battle wounds. These are messages. This is how an empire marks its borders. Not with flags, not with fences, with fear. Because what you're starting to realize is this: T-Rex didn't just dominate through violence, it dominated through presence. There's a rustle in the underbrush. You freeze. Out of the cycads steps something smaller, sleeker. It's not the tyrant. It's a raptor. Not Hollywood-sized, but real, about the size of a wolf. Feathers ripple across its limbs like armor made of straw. Its gaze flicks around, twitchy, calculating. It sniffs the air, then turns around and vanishes without a sound. Even it won't stay long in this part of the forest, because even predators here are prey. Here's something paleontologists love to argue about. Was T-Rex truly the peak of evolution's design? Or was it simply big, dumb, and lucky? But the facts? They're sobering. Its olfactory bulbs, the part of its brain devoted to smell, were enormous. It could scent a meal or a hiding animal from miles away. Its vision? Binocular, forward-facing, depth perception, like a hawk. It didn't just see you, it focused on you. And its hearing? Tuned to the low frequencies of movement. Your heartbeat, the creak of a rib cage under stress. You move again, quietly. The trees open into another clearing, larger, flatter. In the center lies a carcass. Not ancient, not decayed, fresh. A triceratops, its frill shattered, its ribs gaping like broken cathedral windows. Blood pools beneath it, swarmed by insects the size of your thumb. And beside it, the tyrant again, closer than ever. You hit the dirt, crawl behind the mossy boulder slick with fear and time. You can hear it chew. The sound isn't just gross, it's intimate. The bones crack like firewood, tendons snap like cello strings. There's a squelch, then a sigh. And then, it stops. The T-Rex lifts its head, sniffs, pauses, and lies down. You freeze. This is new. It curls slightly, tail wrapping behind it. It groans once, low and heavy, and rests its head on its forelimbs. It's not sleeping like a dog. It's settling like a god. And now that it's motionless, you finally see it for what it is, an animal. Its skin isn't just scales, it's dimpled, peeling in places, maybe even fuzzed near the neck. Some scientists think it had proto-feathers as a juvenile. Others swear it stayed scaly. But up close, the answer is maybe both. This wasn't just a monster. It was an organism, a creature that breathed, slept, and sometimes just watched the world go by. And that's what makes it worse. Because lions roar, bears rage, sharks thrash. But the T-Rex? It just exists. No roar, no flex, no performance. It doesn't need to show off. It knows it wins. You're watching the top predator in Earth's history nap. But here's the real question. What happens when the king wakes up and he's not alone? The T-Rex stirs, snorts, stands, shakes off a few flies, and stalks into the brush with all the grace of a freight train learning ballet. Gone. And just like that, the world dares to live again. But you don't move. Not yet. Because now you know something deep in your bones. This isn't just survival. This is dominion. You wait. Not because you're frozen in terror, though sure, that's part of it, but because the forest is listening. Every twig crack, every rustle of fern feels louder now, like nature's own warning system twitching with anticipation. The T-Rex may be gone for now, but the air still trembles where it walked. And somehow, you feel like it's not over. You rise slowly. Your legs are stiff, your palms slick with sweat, and something else, probably ancient mud, but let's pretend it's just that. You descend the slope behind the clearing, moving through undergrowth that grows darker with every step. The daylight doesn't penetrate here, not fully, and your instincts start screaming because you've just stepped into the tyrant's territory. Not metaphorically, literally. At first, it looks like a dried-up stream bed, but as you move closer, you realize it's something else. The path is too straight, too wide, and too worn. This isn't erosion. This is a trail. Beaten down by something heavy, frequently, repeatedly, with purpose. You crouch to inspect the ground. Deep impressions stretch out in a rhythm like drum beats carved into mud. 3-toed, each big enough to cradle your torso. T-Rex footprints. So many they overlap. An entire family history of footsteps. You run your fingers along the edges of one print and feel it, wait, as if the earth hasn't quite recovered from the last stomp. And then you spot them. A line of jagged stones, half cracked, some charred, a few curved like collapsed domes. Eggshells, shattered and fossilized, lying in a scattered halo. You've stumbled into a nesting ground. Here's your reality check. T-Rex didn't start as a planet-dominating nightmare. It started as something small, fragile, feathered, cute even, if you ignore the eyes. Some paleontologists suggest juveniles may have played a completely different role in the ecosystem. Not bone crushers, but speed demons, fast, agile, pursuit hunters. Imagine a lanky murder bird with attitude, something between a turkey, a sprinter, and a really bad day. Quick fact, juvenile T-Rexes had proportionally longer legs and thinner jaws. They couldn't crush bones. They hunted with precision. Meaning, for the first 10 years of their life, T-Rexes weren't mini versions of the adult. They were another predator entirely. That's rare in nature. Modern predators don't shift identities. A lion cub isn't a cheetah. A tiger baby doesn't start as a weasel. But T-Rex, it got a 2-for-1 evolution deal. First, you chase prey. Then, you become a catastrophe. You move cautiously between the fossilized nests. A few unbroken eggs glint faintly in the mud, basketball-sized and long empty. But you feel something in the air. A hush. A memory. As if you're not alone. Then, something moves above you. You duck, heart leaping. But it's not the tyrant. It's something worse, in its own way. Quetzalcoatlus. A flying reptile, not a dinosaur, but a pterosaur, sails overhead on wings the size of a small plane. Its beak is a spear. Its shadow drags over the ground like a blade. Fringe fact. Some scientists speculate these giants might have scavenged young tyrannosaurs. There's no smoking gun fossil, but imagine it. A freshly hatched juvenile just learning to walk, and a sky monster swoops in like a medieval siege engine. Even kings need to grow fast. Juvenile T-Rexes could gain up to 1,700 pounds per year. That's not growth, that's an arms race. You duck beneath a fallen log, heart pounding again. The forest gets thicker, tighter. The air changes, feels nervous. And then, in the distance, you hear it. A thud. Not fast, not rhythmic, just final. Then another. The king is awake again. You dive into a hollow, press yourself against the rotted bark. The entire forest seems to hold its breath with you. And through a split in the log, you see it. But it's not the same one. This one's smaller, scarred, one eye milky white. Its gait is off, limping slightly, and it's dragging something behind it. At first, you can't tell what it is. A chunk of meat? A carcass? No, it's another T-Rex. The body is smaller, limp, bloodied. The standing T-Rex growls, low, wet, and slow. Not a roar, not a warning, something more personal. A statement. This is intraspecies combat. Paleontologists have debated it for decades. Did T-Rex fight its own kind? Now you have your answer. Skull fossils show healed bite wounds. One specimen even had a broken jaw that somehow mended, suggesting the loser walked away. But not this time. You're witnessing the aftermath of a territorial execution. Because when you rule the world, you still need something to fight. And sometimes that something is yourself. The victor lifts its head, lets out a sound like gravel being swallowed by thunder. Then it vanishes back into the trees, dragging its rival like a trophy. You just saw the king kill one of his own. But here's the terrifying part. This isn't dominance. This is maintenance. And it's only getting worse. You crawl out of your hiding spot slowly, every nerve still twitching. This wasn't a one-time event. This wasn't a fluke. This is how it works. You're not watching nature thrive. You're watching it thin itself out. One species, no challengers, nothing left to fear, except itself. You look down at the ground where the loser lay. Puncture wounds, skull collapse. The tooth spacing is exact. You're not just standing in a crime scene. You're standing in a throne room, where the only rule is, there can only be one. Somewhere between the mangled nest and the blood-washed slope below, the realization sets in. This was never the age of dinosaurs. It was the age of one. You thought ecosystems were webs, interconnected, messy, full of counterbalances. But here in the Cretaceous, the web's been snapped, burned, replaced by a funnel. And at the bottom of it is one jaw, one animal, Tyrannosaurus rex. You climb carefully, using twisted roots for support, as the trees thin out above you. The hill crests onto a ridge, and what you see takes the breath from your body. Below lies a basin, a floodplain, open, green, stretched wide like a breath held too long. A winding stream threads through the middle, shimmering beneath the sun like molten silver. Pockets of ginkgo trees cluster along the edges. Towering conifers stand like ancient guards. And in the open, herds. Dozens of duck-billed edmontosaurs, moving like cattle under a sky that no longer favors them. Farther off, a trio of ankylosaurs lumber along, their club tails dragging like tired sledgehammers. Even a pachycephalosaurus appears, ramming its head into a tree for reasons that feel both evolutionary and deeply personal. Life is here, but peace is not. You watch closely. Every motion below is cautious, jumpy. The edmontosaurs never stop glancing up. The ankylosaurs graze in tight formation. The pachycephalosaurus, okay, he's still doing whatever that's about. But across all species, one thing's clear. They're eating in a predator's pantry. They're not free. They're renting this land from something they can't afford to fight. Then you notice another oddity, or rather, the absence of one. No juveniles. None of the herds have visible young. No calves peeking from behind legs, no nervous baby ankylos. Where are they? Hidden? Gone? Eaten? The presence of T-Rex didn't just kill bodies, it killed birth rates. Modern ecologists use the term landscape of fear to describe this exact thing. The idea that just the presence of a top predator changes how other animals eat, move, mate, raise young. It's been observed with wolves and elk in Yellowstone, sharks and seals in the Pacific. But here, multiply it by 1,000. T-Rex doesn't just stalk prey, it stalks biology. You squint across the plain, the Edmontosaur herd shifts subtly, not toward the safety of the ridge you're standing on, but toward a dense grove of trees. At first, it seems foolish. Trees block vision, limit escape. But then you understand. In the trees, the tyrant can't sprint, can't swing its tail, can't unleash its true size. It's like trying to fight a tank in a supermarket aisle. You don't need distance, you need disruption. And then the wind changes, the leaves rustle, birds scatter. From the far side of the clearing, just beyond the shimmer of the trees, it steps out. Not the one-eyed survivor, a different T-Rex. Bigger, scarred, heavy. It moves like it's not just walking, but enforcing. Its presence is like a new law being written across the plain. And what do the herds do? They leave. Quietly, slowly, no stampede, no panic, just surrender. You wonder what it must be like to command such fear, to clear a valley by existing, to never need to roar, to have the concept of you do the work. And yet, this thing is not a god, not invincible. Look closer. Scars stripe its flanks. One forearm bears a deep gouge. There's a circular mark on its tail that looks almost like a bite. From another T-Rex. That's the pattern here. When you reach the top of the food chain and no one can take you down, something still does. Disease, injury, bad luck, or, more often than not, each other. Because what comes next is stranger still. You begin descending toward the valley, staying low, heart in your throat. The trail curves near a bend in the river, and that's where you find it. Another set of tracks. But these don't stride. They stumble. The claw marks drag. One foot appears twisted. Mud is kicked up in irregular patterns. It's not moving with power. It's moving with pain. You follow them, inch by inch, and then stop. Because the tracks end at a body. A juvenile T-Rex, slumped beside the riverbank, skull shattered, spine partially exposed. You kneel and run your fingers across the skull. 2 deep, clean puncture marks. The spacing? Familiar. You're looking at a kill. Not a scavenged corpse, not a freak accident, a deliberate death. Modern animals do this. Crocodiles, lions, bears. When resources tighten or dominance is challenged, they eliminate rivals, even their own young. This is the culling of competition. It's not sport, it's not cruelty, it's efficiency. Which brings you to the most horrifying realization yet. This isn't a predator that feeds on a world. It's a predator that prunes it. No threats above, no alliances beside, only constant pressure from within. A self-regulating engine of extinction. And it worked. For millions of years, it worked. T-Rex didn't just survive, it ruled. With teeth, terror, cunning, and cannibalism. You stare at the juvenile's corpse, and you get it. This isn't a world full of life. This is a world sorted by dominance, engineered not by nature, but by one animal. You've seen the tyrant's reach, but now it's time to see its blueprints, because next, you'll enter the heart of its empire. And what you find there might not be a hunting ground, but a palace. You move carefully now, not like prey, but like a ghost. Every step forward feels like walking across a memory that hasn't quite faded. The air has thickened again, and with it comes a pressure. Not physical, not audible, but felt. Like the land is watching. Because here's what's becoming unmistakably clear. T-Rex didn't just walk through this world. It shaped it. At first, you're just following a dip in the terrain, but then the geometry strikes you. Too wide for a stream, too smooth for erosion. This isn't a path. It's a groove, worn deep into the landscape by something massive over generations. Tail drags, claw scuffs, compacted soil. You're not just seeing its empire. You're walking in its footsteps, literally. You pause beside a tree trunk, gashed and cracked. The bark has been scraped away in long, clean lines, territorial markers. You've seen similar behavior in big cats, in wolves, even in wild boar. Only this time, the claw marks are over 7 feet high. This wasn't random. It was regulated. Some paleontologists propose that T-Rex engaged in something like zoning behavior. Waste deposits along ridges, nesting sites clustered around food-rich areas, trails looped wide around hatchling grounds. That isn't chaos. That's structure. You're not in a hunting territory anymore. You're in a district, an empire of one. You crest the small ridge, and there it is, a mound, wide, compressed, half sunken into the earth like something massive slept here for a century. You walk closer, and the smell hits you, old meat and time. Then you spot them. Fossilized dung, yes, coprolites, ancient poop. And inside? Shards of bone, some thin and round, others thick and jagged, and one set undeniably from another T-Rex. Fringe fact: yes, there's fossil evidence, coprolites, bone scrapings, teeth marks that supports it. T-Rex ate T-Rex. Whether through combat, starvation, or opportunism, the message is clear. Even in death, the king feeds the king. You stand there a moment, looking down at the cracked remains of what was once dinner, and a rival. This isn't a predator. This is a monarchy with no mercy. You press on. The land shifts again, rising. The breeze carries a new scent, something sticky sweet, like iron and rot and victory. You follow it, and there, just over the crest, is another kill. A triceratops, or what's left of one. Its skull is fractured inward, its back legs twisted wrong, the flesh is torn, the ribs bent like bent rebar. This wasn't scavenged, it was ambushed, and everything about the damage tells you one thing: strategy. T-Rex wasn't just brawn, it was patient, it was precise. It knew how to wait, how to camouflage, how to use the forest to mask its presence. It didn't chase every time. Sometimes it let the food come to it. Then, one charge, one bite, done. You've seen it before. The remains of a kill not scattered in panic, but left behind like a message, a signature. You crouch near the corpse. Flies buzz, thick as fog. Behind you, something stirs, but it's small. Just a scavenger, a feathery raptor picking at scraps. Even the raptors know better than to take too much. You see others now, tiny mammals, insects, beetles, scavengers swarming the site like looters after a storm. And none of them make a sound. Because even with a fresh kill laid bare, they know the king might not be done yet. You step back from the carcass, carefully. Everything here, the carcass, the trail, the territorial scrapes, the dung, it all starts to come together. This isn't random. This isn't violence for violence sake. This is infrastructure. We always talk about T-Rex as a predator, but what if it was more than that? What if it was the first animal to build something like a system, a ruling order of blood, teeth, and silence? You take a breath and look around, and then it hits you. T-Rex didn't just kill prey, it removed variables. Everything smaller than it adjusted, fled, or died. Everything larger than it didn't exist. Even itself called from time to time. What remained? Order. Modern ecologies rely on checks and balances. Wolves, bears, cougars, they all counter each other. But in the late Cretaceous, T-Rex tipped the scales so heavily that it became the axis. When it moved, the whole system shifted around it. Migration routes, feeding grounds, reproduction patterns, predator hierarchies. Even the climate may have subtly bent to its influence, some fringe scientists argue. Imagine that. A single animal so massive, so efficient, so consistently disruptive. It altered the weather. You keep moving. At the edge of the plateau, you pause and finally see it. Not the tyrant, but what's left of everything else. A path carved through the wilds. No signs of raptors, no mammal trails, just one long, uninterrupted corridor of disturbance. The T-Rex highway. You step into it, and for a second, it feels like stepping into a cathedral. The light dims, the canopy narrows. You're not just walking anymore, you're invading. This isn't a predator's lair. This is a capital city, ruled not by votes, not by gods, but by the sound of footsteps that change the ground forever. You've walked the empire. Now it's time to see the heart of it, the throne room itself. Because what lies ahead isn't just a kill site or a trail. It's where the tyrant was born, and where the bloodline began. You feel it before you see it. A shift in the air, a thickness in your chest, as if the oxygen's been aged in something ancient and territorial. This isn't humidity, it's presence. You step down into a shallow depression, and the forest curves around you like a coliseum. The trees part in a circle, not by chance, but because something large and regular and terrifying has come through here again and again. This isn't a hunting trail. It's a sanctuary, a fortress, a throne. There, sunken into the soft earth, you find it. A raised mound of dirt, covered in dust and moss. It doesn't look like much at first, but then you see the depressions, nested craters arranged in careful spirals, 2 feet wide, equidistant, repeating. This is a T-Rex nesting site, not just where it killed, where it created. The soil smells of rot and something sweeter, a strange musk of decay and care. You walk slowly around the mound, hand brushing along the edge, and there, caught in the sediment, are the remains of eggshells, fossilized, fragile, scattered like the shattered ideas of safety. You pause at one and kneel. The shell glitters slightly in the light. You touch it, reverently. And for the first time, a thought emerges. Maybe T-Rex wasn't just a monster. Maybe it was also a parent. Recent fossil finds from Montana suggest that T-Rex may have guarded its nests. Some paleontologists believe adults stayed near hatchlings for months, maybe longer. Which reframes everything. This wasn't just a killing machine, it was a guardian. A 7-ton weapon that might have also nuzzled. You try to picture it, a hulking, brutal adult leaning gently over a nest, nudging a hatchling with its snout, standing watch. because even tyrants raise heirs. But then you look again, and the picture changes, because near the mound, half buried in the dirt, are more bones, small ones, skulls, spine fragments, rib cages the size of chickens. Juvenile T-Rex remains, not a few, several, some intact, some scattered, some with visible bite marks. And just like that, the throne becomes a tomb. Many modern apex predators practice it. Eagles push siblings from the nest. Sharks cannibalize litter mates before birth. And in this place, T-Rex may have done the same. Only the strongest survive. Maybe it wasn't a parent culling the weak. Maybe it was a sibling. Maybe the one who grew fastest ate the others. You move around the nesting site with fresh caution. And then you find it. A juvenile skull, mostly intact, glossy, with a small puncture wound in the cranium. Not natural, not disease, a bite. You run your fingers along the curve of it and feel the story. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't decay. This was a decision. You thought you'd found a nursery. Turns out you found a battlefield. Because even birth here comes at a price. And then the ground vibrates. Not sharply, not like before. Just one deep pulse. Then another. Footsteps. Still distant, but getting closer. You freeze. This isn't your first encounter, but something about this one feels different. Like gravity's trying harder. Like the earth is warning you. You duck behind the mound, heart in your throat. But the footsteps don't come any closer. They pass, slow, deliberate, and vanish into the woods. But the air doesn't lift. The pressure stays. You crawl low across the forest floor, deeper into the shade. And there, carved into a fallen log, you see something else. Vertical gouges, deep, repetitive, evenly spaced. Not feeding marks, not combat scars. Messages. Modern animals do this all the time. Wolves leave scent. Bears claw bark. Elephants break branches in patterns. And now, T-Rex joins the club. Some paleontologists believe T-Rex may have communicated with soundless signals, carvings, territory markers, warnings. You're not looking at a scratch. You're looking at a sentence. And if that weren't enough, you remember something else. A fringe theory. One that seemed ridiculous when you first read it. But now you feel it in your ribs. Infrasound. Not a roar, not a growl, but a rumble so low it's barely audible. A pressure wave that travels through the ground. A way to say I'm here without saying anything. Imagine being warned by the earth itself. You step back from the log, heart hammering. This wasn't just a hunting ground. This wasn't just a nest. This was a command post. A place of death, birth, hierarchy, and memory. And when you step away from the site, you carry something with you. Not a fossil, not a scar, a realization. T-Rex didn't rule with chaos. It ruled with structure. You pass beneath a curtain of ferns. The sunlight dims behind you. And for a moment, you smile. Because you were wrong. This wasn't just a predator. It was a curator, an architect, not of buildings, but of everything. You've seen the cradle, the nursery, the mausoleum. But soon, you'll learn what happened when this empire cracked. Because when you reach the end of the tyrant's age, the world doesn't mourn. It stares upward and waits for the sky to fall. You leave the nesting ground behind, but the feeling follows you, thick and heavy, like you've just walked out of someone's home without permission. There's no T-Rex in sight, not yet, but its memory still stalks your spine. As you push deeper into the jungle, the terrain begins to shift. The ground gets wetter, the underbrush thicker. The trees, once towering and wide-spaced, close in on you. It's humid, no, suffocating. Every breath feels borrowed. And then, the smell hits you. Not the iron rot of a kill, something else. Decay. But this time, not from meat, from systems. You push through a curtain of hanging moss, and suddenly the world opens into a swamp. A slow river snakes through the middle. Strange, broad-leafed plants float like scabs across its surface. The air buzzes with insects, and something else. You can't name it, but you feel it. Wrongness. Dead trees lean into the water like drunks. The edges of the swamp are littered with bones. Not gnawed, not broken, not clean. Just left. There's no predator here. There's nothing here. Not even fear. Because fear implies life. And in this place, life is losing. This was once a vibrant feeding ground. You can tell by the terrain. Flattened trails, scrape marks, feces deposits, all the signs of a well-worn patrol path. But no patrols have passed here in weeks, maybe months. T-Rex didn't leave because it was hunted. It left because even a king needs subjects, and there are none left. You crouch beside a shallow puddle, inspecting a trampled bush. In the mud, you find a print, still recognizable, still fresh. T-Rex, but lighter, smaller, a juvenile, which makes the silence around you more disturbing. Because if a young one passed through recently, where is it now? Here's the danger of a hyper-dominant predator. When it succeeds too well, it strips the pyramid bare. T-Rex consumed so much, so often, so completely, that over time, it ate itself into a corner. Ecological diversity started thinning. Prey species grew scarce. Juvenile T-Rexes likely couldn't find food. You don't need a comet to end a dynasty. Sometimes all it takes is overperformance. You push onward. The swamp thickens. You pass toppled ferns, crushed shrubs, and then, out of the water, you see it. Another corpse. Not a kill. A casualty. A T-Rex. Young, maybe adolescent. Emaciated. Ribs protruding. Scales sunken. Dead not from combat, but from starvation. You kneel beside it, careful. Insects scatter from its hollow eye sockets. The jaw is slack, the limbs folded. It didn't die fast. It died waiting. And now the realization lands with full weight. The age of the T-Rex didn't end when the comet hit. It started cracking long before that. The signs were all there. Shrinking herds, disrupted migrations, dead juveniles, abandoned feeding zones. The king didn't fall. The kingdom crumbled underneath it. You leave the swamp behind. And as you climb a ridge, you start to hear thunder. But there are no clouds, no wind, no storm. This isn't thunder from the sky. It's coming from beneath. The ground shifts, just slightly. A distant pulse, like the earth remembering something painful. You crest the ridge, and what you see stops you cold. Across the plain, something glows. Not bright, not fire, just red, reflected light. In the sky, on the edges of the world. And in the distance, far beyond the tree line, a black shape is rising. A column, a tower, a wall of smoke. Before the asteroid, Earth was already bleeding. In what is now modern-day India, a volcanic event called the Deccan Traps was underway. Massive eruptions, lasting tens of thousands of years, were vomiting sulfur, ash, and carbon into the air. Climate patterns were shifting. Temperatures fluctuated wildly. Food chains were already in chaos. You don't need fire from the sky to start an apocalypse. Sometimes the earth itself opens. You sit down on the edge of the ridge. The air feels different now, heavier, tainted. This isn't extinction by impact. This is death by erosion. Of ecosystems, of fertility, of balance. T-Rex wasn't just outliving its prey, it was outliving its world. You close your eyes, and for a moment, just a moment, you imagine it. A lone T-Rex, full grown, standing in a dead valley. No sounds, no movement, nothing left to hunt. Just memories and hunger. And maybe it roars, not to warn, not to challenge, but because it doesn't know what else to do. The king's throne is cracked, the land is bleeding, and the sky is about to fall. Because next, the asteroid comes. And when it does, the age of giants won't die quietly. It'll burn. It begins not with a flash, but a sound. A low whistle. Not the kind you hear, the kind you feel. In your teeth, in your spine. A tone so deep, it bypasses your ears and burrows into your bones. You look up. At first, it's just a speck in the sky. A shimmer. A mistake. Then the clouds around it tear like paper. The air ignites, and the sky itself splits open. You don't run. You can't. Because how do you outrun the end of history? 66 million years ago, a space rock roughly 7 miles wide hit the Yucatan Peninsula in what is now Mexico. The energy released, equivalent to 10 billion Hiroshima bombs. Winds faster than hurricanes, shock waves that circled the earth, fires that didn't just start, they exploded. And in the immediate vicinity, nothing survived. Not even time. You blink, and daylight dies. The light around you becomes gold, then orange, then a kind of sickly metallic red. Everything smells like burning. Even the plants, even the air. The ground starts to move, not shake, not crack, roll, like the earth is trying to stand up. You collapse beside a tree, barely holding on. Overhead, leaves are curling inward, roasting while still attached. A breeze, hot, fast, apocalyptic, rips past your face, pulling embers behind it. And then, you hear it. A scream, but not from a human throat, from a T-Rex. You stagger toward the sound. Smoke coils through the trees. Shadows dance wildly across the ground. And there it is, a full-grown tyrant, its jaw open, its body shivering. Not from fear, from confusion, from pain. It turns in circles, sniffing the wind, sensing something it has no word for, no instinct for. Because nothing in its evolution prepared it for this. You watch it retreat, not run, but retreat, stumbling into the trees like a god that's lost its script. And somehow, you feel it in your chest. This is the first time it's felt small. Scientists believe that within minutes of the Chicxulub impact, thermal radiation incinerated plant life across thousands of miles. The heat flash alone could have started global firestorms, burning forests, plains, even entire ecosystems. If the blast didn't kill you, the smoke inhalation would. You stumble deeper into the forest. The trees are glowing now, not from sunlight, but from flame. Sap boils, bark explodes, the world is cooking. And behind it all, silence. Because everything that can scream already has. You drop to your knees beside a stream that's more ash than water. The ground here is blackened, the mud boils. But across the way, barely visible through the smoke, you see another T-Rex. Smaller, maybe adolescent, still breathing. It limps toward a cluster of ferns and collapses. You crawl toward it, gagging on the air, hands blistering on the dirt. You reach it just as its eye closes, and that's when the wind shifts. Not a breeze, a wave. Hot, dense, final. The trees bow, the ground buckles, the sky roars as the shockwave finally arrives. You try to brace, but it lifts you, lifts the trees, lifts the ground. And when it slams everything back down again, nothing is where it was. The Chicxulub impact didn't just release heat. It triggered seismic waves so powerful they caused earthquakes on the other side of the planet, to tsunamis over a mile high, debris thrown into orbit, and within hours, the entire globe began to darken. Not metaphorically, literally. You awaken, barely. Smoke swirls around you. The air is thick with dust. And overhead, for the first time in hours, the light is gone. Not night, nuclear twilight. The sun is there, but blurred, muted, as if morning. You sit up, and you realize something awful. You're alive. But everything larger than you isn't. Across the clearing, the body of the T-Rex lies still. Flies haven't come yet. Not even bacteria know what to do in this new world. And you, for a moment, understand what comes next. Not the sound of roars, but the sound of roots reclaiming bone. The real killer wasn't just the impact, it was the aftermath. The dust cloud from the explosion blocked sunlight for months, maybe years. Plants died, photosynthesis stopped, herbivores starved, predators followed. It wasn't a firestorm that killed the T-Rex. It was the dark. You stumble deeper into the forest. The trees are glowing now, not from sunlight, but from flame. Sap boils, bark explodes. The world is cooking. And behind it all, silence. Because everything that can scream already has. You drop to your knees beside a stream that's more ash than water. The ground here is blackened, the mud boils. But across the way, barely visible through the smoke, you see another T-Rex. Smaller, maybe adolescent, still breathing. It limps toward a cluster of ferns and collapses. You crawl toward it, gagging on the air, hands blistering on the dirt. You reach it just as its eye closes. And that's when the wind shifts. Not a breeze, a wave. Hot, dense, final. The trees bow, the ground buckles, the sky roars as the shockwave finally arrives. You try to brace, but it lifts you, lifts the trees, lifts the ground. And when it slams everything back down again, nothing is where it was. The Chicxulub impact didn't just release heat. It triggered seismic waves so powerful they caused earthquakes on the other side of the planet, to tsunamis over a mile high, debris thrown into orbit. And within hours, the entire globe began to darken. Not metaphorically, literally. You awaken, barely. Smoke swirls around you. The air is thick with dust. And overhead, for the first time in hours, the light is gone. Not night, nuclear twilight. The sun is there, but blurred, muted, as if morning. You sit up, and you realize something awful. You're alive, but everything larger than you isn't. Across the clearing, the body of the T-Rex lies still. Flies haven't come yet. Not even bacteria know what to do in this new world. And you, for a moment, understand what comes next. Not the sound of roars, but the sound of roots reclaiming bone. The real killer wasn't just the impact, it was the aftermath. The dust cloud from the explosion blocked sunlight for months, maybe years. Plants died, photosynthesis stopped, herbivores starved, predators followed. It wasn't a firestorm that killed the T-Rex. It was the dark. You rise slowly, every part of you aching. The forest, if you can call it that now, is quiet. No chirps, no rustles, no growls. Just the crackle of cooling stone and the whisper of ash settling on ash. You walk past the body of the tyrant. Its eye is open, its jaw slack. No snarl, just stillness. And as you walk away, you don't feel victorious. You feel small. Because you didn't outlive it. You just got lucky. The king is dead. The throne is ash. But from these embers, something stirs. Because next comes the inheritance of the earth. And guess who's next in line?
The world isn't quiet. It's hushed. A silence that presses against your eardrums, as though the air itself is listening for something that's no longer coming. You stand ankle deep in ash. The trees, if they're still standing, are little more than blackened skeletons, limbs curled in permanent grief. The underbrush is gone. The insects are gone. The color is gone. This isn't a jungle anymore. It's a wake. And every step you take feels like walking through the memory of something that used to breathe. Somewhere nearby, a rock shifts. Not much, just a pebble rolling from a charred hill. But it's the first sound in hours that wasn't wind or falling soot. You flinch, because now every sound matters. Because now you're no longer in a world dominated. You're in a world that's been vacated. Across a scorched clearing lies a skeleton, too long to be a mammal, too sharp-jawed to be anything else. Another T-Rex. Its bones are clean, but not scavenged. There's no meat left, but also no disturbance. The bones lay where the body fell, aligned, patient, quiet. You crouch beside it. The skull, even empty, feels like it's watching. Once, this thing commanded valleys, made entire species change course, shaped evolution around its hunger. Now, it's part of the floor. And what strikes you most is how much room there is. With the T-Rex gone, and with it most apex predators of the age, a vacuum forms. Ecosystems don't do well with absence. Something always moves in to fill the space. But for now, that space is huge, and it's empty. You look around, expecting motion, but there's none. No raptors, no crocodilomorphs, not even a bird call. Because the world hasn't recovered, it's waiting. You descend into a canyon formed not by erosion, but by collapse. Great slabs of earth buckled during the seismic waves. What once was a riverbed is now a dry throat carved into the land. At the bottom, you see something move. Small, darting, fast. At first, you think it's just an insect, but then it pauses, and you realize it's a mammal. Tiny, rat-like, nervous. It sniffs, scurries, disappears. But that flash of fur is like a match in a cave. Because in that flicker, you understand the next 1,000 millennia. In the void left by dinosaurs, mammals, once tiny nocturnal things barely surviving in the shadows, rise. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but relentlessly. No more T-Rex to step on them. No more raptors to sniff them out. No more thunder in the trees. And where there's a gap, life returns. You follow a dried riverbed downstream. Charred twigs snap beneath your feet. The air tastes like soot and something sharp. Ozone, maybe. And then you find a clutch of tracks. Not T-Rex, not hadrosaur. Mammal. Small prints, dozens of them, all weaving through the ash like veins in a new body. The earth is reassembling itself. And here's the twist. It's doing it without the king. You sit for a moment on a rock, still warm from the fires, and watch the valley below. Mist curls over scorched hills like ghosts checking for survivors. And all at once, You grieve, not for the monster, but for the balance, for the tension that gave this world its shape. Because with T-Rex gone, so too is the pressure that once held everything in motion. What happens when the apex falls and nothing's ready to replace it? What happens when life doesn't restart, but reboots? You move again, not because you have somewhere to go, but because stillness feels wrong now. And soon, in the distance, you hear a sound, high-pitched, familiar. Bird song. You smile, because birds are dinosaurs technically, survivors, flighted escapees from the fire. And now, they rule the sky. Not with talons, but with lightness. Among the few dinosaurs that survived the impact were the ancestors of modern birds. Small, light-bodied, with beaks instead of teeth. Flight helped them escape, migrate, adapt. In a world where everything was too big to survive, small won. You spot one now, perched on a blackened branch. Its head tilts, curious. It chirps once, and takes off. You look back one last time at the valley, at the bones, at the ash, at the trail you've walked through a fallen age. And for the first time, you let yourself hope. Because extinction doesn't mean the end of life. It means the end of a story. And this one? This was the story of an animal so powerful, so vast, so terrifying, it ruled without question. But in the end, it couldn't outrun the sky. You've walked with the tyrant, stood in its shadow, watched it rise, fall, and vanish. But in its place, something new begins. Because next time, we explore what came after, and what might one day come again. You're walking through a world reborn. Not one full of color or joy, not yet, but one recovering, inch by inch. A stubborn, fragile comeback written not in grand gestures, but in grit. Tiny shoots push through the ash. New ferns unfurl like scrolls. The skeletons of the old world are slowly being buried, not by time, but by life. The age of dinosaurs is over, but its echo remains. And it starts with a question. What gets remembered, and what gets buried? You follow a dry gully winding through layered cliffs. The earth here is split, revealing the scars of the past. Strata, bands of sediment laid down over millions of years. They look like pages in a book whose middle chapters just stop, right around one specific, unmistakable line. A dark band of iridium-rich clay, the KPG boundary, a physical marker of the moment the world blinked. Above it, mammals, grasses, small birds. Below it, T-Rex, and silence. All over the earth, in Italy, in New Zealand, in North America, there's a thin, dark layer of clay in the rock. That layer marks the boundary between the Cretaceous and Paleogene periods, and it's filled with iridium, a metal rare on Earth but common in asteroids. It's the fingerprints of the sky, proof that something cosmic touched the ground and changed everything. You place your hand on that dark band of stone, and suddenly the weight of absence hits you. Not just the death, but the erasure. Entire species gone. Not just T-Rex, but ankylosaurs, triceratops, pterosaurs, mosasaurs, ammonites. An entire way of life extinct in a geological heartbeat. You move on, not because you want to, but because that's what life does. It moves forward. And as you walk, you notice something strange. A footprint. Not fossilized, modern, but large, boot-sized, human. You're not alone anymore, and it's not just the mammals that have inherited this world, it's you.
You crest a hill, and below you lies a dig site. Tarps, brushes, paleontologists hunched over rock with toothpicks and tweezers, carefully exposing the bones of T-Rex. And there it is, skull half excavated, teeth still sharp, eye socket pointed skyward. Even in death, it demands your attention. You stand at the edge of the dig, watching silently, and the young scientist looks up. She doesn't see you, not exactly, but she feels something. Maybe the presence of the thing they're uncovering. Maybe just the pressure of history. She turns back to the skull, whispering, "You ruled everything, didn't you?" The first fossils were discovered in the early 1900s. Since then, dozens of specimens have been found across North America, each one telling part of a story, a puzzle of bone and theory. And even now, we're still learning. T-Rex wasn't just a brute. It had a brain, binocular vision, parental instincts, keen smell. It was more than a monster. It was a design. You sit on the edge of the site and listen as the team talks, debates feather theories, argues over pack hunting, laughs at one another's guesses. Because that's what the tyrant left behind. Not just fear, but fascination. Drop a comment. What do you think we still don't know about T-Rex? What's the mystery that keeps you up at night? One of the scientists gently dusts the ridge of a rib bone. Another records notes into a phone. They're not just excavating fossils, they're excavating identity. What does it mean that one animal ruled alone? What does it say about the universe that it allowed that to happen? And what does it say about us that we can't stop looking back? The sun begins to set. The team packs up. You remain, watching the hill as light fades across a face frozen in prehistoric defiance. And in that moment, you wonder, does the earth miss it? Does it remember the sound of the tyrant's footsteps? The weight of its hunger? The heat of its breath? Or has time already rewritten it all into sediment and speculation? You reach out to the skull. You don't touch it, not really. You just acknowledge it, like paying tribute at the tomb of a forgotten emperor. And in return, it gives you silence. But not emptiness, just finality. Every T-Rex bone tells two stories. One about the world it came from, two about the people trying to understand it. Fossils aren't time machines, they're mirrors. And here, in the last chapter of an age, you realize something. T-Rex didn't go extinct when it died. It lived longer than its body, in memory, in mythology, in fear, in film, and now, in you. You rise, turn away from the dig, and walk back down into a world no longer ruled by giants, but forever shaped by them. This was the age of the tyrant, of a creature that ruled without rivals, lived without restraint, and died without ceremony. Not because it failed, but because the world changed faster than it could. And in that story lies a lesson, not for monsters, but for us. That power, no matter how immense, can still vanish in the blink of a sky.
Time skips. You're not walking anymore. You're writing. Something smooth, electric, modern. A train. Beneath you, the tunnel hums. Steel cuts through darkness. You glance up at the other passengers, staring at phones, typing on laptops, nodding off to music that wouldn't even make sense in the age you just left. And yet, under this tunnel, beneath the concrete and grid lines, there are bones. Maybe not right here, but close. All across this continent, lying silent under schools and parking lots and suburbs, T-Rex is still here, buried, watching, waiting. In places like Montana, Colorado, Alberta, Even suburban New Jersey, crews building homes or roads sometimes stumble upon Cretaceous fossils, not because they're rare, but because they're everywhere. T-Rex bones, Triceratops teeth, fossilized dung, all resting just meters beneath modern life. We live on their graves, and we barely know it. And yet, under this tunnel, beneath the concrete and grid lines, there are bones. Maybe not right here, but close. All across this continent, lying silent under schools and parking lots and suburbs, T-Rex is still here, buried, watching, waiting. In places like Montana, Colorado, Alberta, even suburban New Jersey, crews building homes or roads sometimes stumble upon Cretaceous fossils, not because they're rare, but because they're everywhere. T-Rex bones, Triceratops teeth, fossilized dung, all resting just meters beneath modern life. We live on their graves, and we barely know it. You exit the train and step into the city. Skyscrapers rise like metal canyons, cars hiss through the streets, neon reflections ripple in puddles. You're surrounded by glass, electricity, noise. And yet, with every footstep on the sidewalk, you wonder, what lived here before it was paved? What died beneath this mall? Whose ribcage cracked where that vending machine hums? Because extinction doesn't erase, it layers. You walk through a museum, not because it's on the way, but because it's calling. A banner outside flutters, Feast of Fangs, the Tyrant's Reign. You enter, marble floors echo under your shoes. Children race past dinosaur skeletons with ice cream fingers and wide eyes. And there it is, center stage, lit from below. The king. A full-mounted T-Rex skeleton. Head low, jaw open, tail curling like a question mark. You don't hear the crowd anymore. You only hear the breath you don't take. Because this isn't a model. This is a ghost. If you've ever stood in front of a T-Rex skeleton, drop a comment. Did it feel big, or did you feel small? You approach it slowly, run your hand along the railing, and look up into the face of survival's failure. It's still intimidating, still massive, but somehow smaller than you expected. Not because it shrank, because you grew. The average human today is about 6 feet tall. T-Rex was 12 feet at the hips, 40 feet long, up to 9 tons. It could bite through a car. But it didn't invent cities, or poetry, or TikTok, or nuclear weapons. So the question isn't, could it kill you? It's, did it understand anything but hunger? And the answer? No. You sit on a bench across from the display, watch people pass by. One takes a selfie, another reads the plaque and frowns at a mispronunciation. A child points and says, "Dinosaur." A parent corrects, "That's T-Rex." And you realize, it's not gone. It's just been translated. Once it ruled with muscle and might. Now it rules in imagination. Its new territory? Books, movies, science, culture. It's a Halloween mask, a plush toy, a Jurassic Park chase scene. Its body is gone, but its power evolved. T-Rex is the most famous dinosaur in history. More documentaries, more toys, more theories than any other prehistoric animal. Why? Because it embodies something primal. Sovereignty, fear, finality. It is what we think power looks like, until we realize it can still lose. You leave the museum. Night has fallen. Lights reflect off car hoods and glass towers. The city hums. And still, you feel it. That distant, thunderous footstep. Not literal, but cultural. The weight of a creature that, long after its last breath, still walks through us. You cross the street. The crosswalk sign beeps. But for just a moment as you walk, the beep fades. The traffic dims. And in your mind, you hear it again. The low, slow rumble. Not from speakers. Not from memory, from the earth. from below. They died, we rose. But what if the two are more connected than we thought? What if we didn't just inherit the world, we inherited the need to rule it? You pause at a bus stop. On the bench, someone's reading a book. You catch the title, The Age of Dinosaurs, A New Reckoning. You smile, because even now, we're still trying to understand what it meant, what it means. And maybe that's the final twist. T-Rex didn't die in fire. It was reborn in thought. Next up, what would happen if it came back? Because science isn't done with the tyrant, and the age of extinction may not be as final as we think.
You're staring at a screen. Not your phone this time, a monitor. White lab lights buzz overhead. Everything smells like glass, bleach, and ambition. A man in a lab coat leans forward. He taps a key. On screen, a model spins. It's a T-Rex skull. Not a photo, not a fossil, a scan. Macked down to the molecular level. We've got 87%, he says. Not enough to clone, but maybe enough to simulate. You glance over at the printout. Genome fragments, heat maps, protein chains. It looks like a computer crash, but it isn't chaos. It's a blueprint. The idea's not just science fiction anymore. Projects like Revive and Restore, CRISPR gene editing, and work done with chicken embryos are pushing the boundaries. We can already insert ancient DNA into living cells. We can already modify birds to carry ancestral traits. We haven't built a T-Rex yet, but we've opened the door. You look at the monitor again and ask the question that's been hanging since the day the fossils were found. Should we? Because we might be able to. But should we? Behind you, the researcher laughs. You think we wouldn't try? You think a species that split the atom wouldn't also build its own monster? And he's not wrong. We build roller coasters themed after raptors. We sell dino chicken nuggets. We cosplay as beasts that would have stepped on us. Of course we'll try to bring one back. Not out of cruelty, out of curiosity. You flip through a portfolio on the desk. Concept art, bone reconstructions, synthetic tissue models, and then something else. A live feed from a habitat, a glass dome in the middle of some protected land. Inside, a reptilian creature is moving. It's not T-Rex, not yet, but it's trying. Some kind of engineered theropod hybrid, part bird, part lizard, part ambition. Its movement is eerily familiar. You lean closer to the glass. The creature turns, meets your gaze, and for just a second, you see it. The king, staring back. Scientists have experimented with chicken embryos to reactivate dormant dinosaur traits, like tails, teeth, and clawed arms. They call them atavisms, traits hidden in the code, waiting to be reawakened. Because birds are dinosaurs, their DNA is a vault, and we have the key. But then you remember something you saw with your own eyes. The cracked throne, the ash-soaked nest, the whispering bones beneath cities. And you realize, bringing it back wouldn't restore history. It would rewrite it. And that's dangerous. Because T-Rex didn't belong to a world with us. It belonged to a world before us. Would a T-Rex survive today? Would it dominate again? Or die in traffic on I-95? You picture it. A T-Rex loose in the modern world. Not a horror movie, a tragedy. Hunted, droned, studied, trapped. A creature evolved for ancient swamps and primeval jungles, now boxed inside fences and fear. Even if we could feed it, contain it, simulate its social instincts, match its heat regulation, we could never give it back what it had, a world that belonged to it. So the real question isn't, should we bring it back? It's, would it want to come back? You sit with that for a moment. And suddenly, the fascination dims. Because cloning it, coding it, reviving it, that's not justice. That's vanity. We don't want it back because we miss it. We want it back because we need to feel powerful enough to undo extinction. The field of de-extinction isn't just about capability, it's about ecological ethics. Where do we put them? What happens if they escape? How do they affect modern ecosystems? Are we resurrecting animals or just creating ghosts? You shut the file, stand, and walk away. Because the most powerful thing about the T-Rex isn't that it lived, it's that it stopped. Some creatures belong to memory, to imagination, to myth, fossilized in stone and in story. They don't need to come back, because they never truly left. But what if extinction wasn't final? What if something else had survived? Next time, we go deeper into the things we didn't bury fast enough, the creatures that slipped through time's cracks, and still might be out there.
It starts with a rumor, a blurry photo, a strange sound in the dark, a claw mark found on the side of a building with no explanation, a viral clip from a drone deep in the Amazon. You click play. The footage shakes, the jungle canopy splits open, something massive moves just out of frame, then static. And you laugh, nervously, because it can't be, right? T-Rex is extinct. But then, the video resurfaces. More views, more chatter. A new video, then another. Something moving through a fog-choked forest in Siberia. Something thudding across a dried lakebed in Australia. Something huge crossing a glacier ridge in Patagonia. No faces, no roars, just footsteps. And the sound of the earth holding its breath. You dig deeper, and you find them. Eyewitness reports, spaced out, unconfirmed, wild, but identical. Eyes forward, arms short, tail like a battering ram, a growl that made car alarms scream without being touched. You know it's impossible, but something in your gut starts to turn. Because you've seen its bones, you've stood in its shadow, and something deep inside you remembers what truth feels like. Most scientists scoff at these claims. They call them hoaxes, hysteria, wishful thinking. And they're probably right. But then there's the small fraction of researchers who say, we've barely mapped 5% of the ocean. Entire mountain ranges remain unscanned. Species thought extinct reappear all the time. If we can lose 8-ton whales in the Mariana Trench, could we also overlook a monster? You look back at the old fossil sites, the dig records, the missing specimens. You start finding gaps. Skeletons moved, excavations halted without reason, locations sealed off after unusual findings. Not conspiracies, just inconsistencies, enough to make you wonder. You head out, into the wilderness, not for proof, for possibility. Your journey takes you far, places where cell service fades, and the sky doesn't reflect city lights. Deep woods, forgotten valleys, collapsed mines, riverbeds that haven't seen human feet in centuries. And then, one night, you hear it. A single thud. Then another. Not rhythmic, not wind, not thunder. Footsteps. Far away, but too heavy, too calculated. You drop to the ground, ears wide, and you wait. But it never gets closer. It just lingers, listening. Like it knows you're here. Like it wants you to know that it's here. Is it really gone? Or did we just stop looking in the right places? You start tracking. You're not a scientist. You don't have gear. Just instinct, curiosity, and memories of the king. You know what to look for. Flattened foliage, deep clawed scrapes, bone piles that don't match any local species.
And the smell. That sweet, rotten tang of meat and ancient heat. You know it. You felt it before. In the throne room. Days pass. Nights stretch. You see nothing. But the absence feels shaped. As if something big has just moved through. And the forest hasn't recovered yet. Then, prints. Massive. Deep. Three-toed. Clawed. The size of a truck tire. Still wet. You freeze. Because this isn't history. This is now. Coelacanths were thought extinct for 66 million years. Until one showed up in a fisherman's net. Wollemi banished from the fossil record, then were found alive in Australia. Nature hides things well, especially when they're not ready to be found. You crouch beside the print, run your hand along its edge. It's warm. The mud hasn't even crusted yet. Whatever made this is still close. And suddenly, the question changes. It's no longer, could it have survived? It becomes, is it watching me now? The hairs on your neck lift. You rise slowly. No sound, no birds, just that pressure. The same feeling you felt back in the age of tyrants, like the world itself has been interrupted. Then, something moves. Not fast, not violent, just present. A shadow between trees, a flicker of mass, a suggestion. You blink. It's gone. But in your chest, the thunder is back. Not from above, not from speakers, but from below. And that's when you know, even if it's not real, even if it never appears again, T-Rex is not extinct in your mind. It's still walking, somewhere, always. You've tracked the king through time, through fossil, through fire, through silence. But what if extinction is only the start of the story? Next time, we go beyond even history, into the world of gods, monsters, and why the things we fear most often look like us.
You return to your world, your timeline, your tiny apartment with blinking screens, artificial light, and the fridge full of expiration dates. Outside, traffic hums, notifications buzz. Life is back to being manageable, but you're not. You sit on your bed, still wearing the boots you tracked through forgotten forests. And you feel it. That thing. The king. Still walking inside you. You go online. You search T-Rex sightings. You find nothing credible. Of course you don't. But the feeling doesn't leave. Not fear. Not awe. Just recognition. Like meeting a version of yourself that never got a chance to evolve. Because the more you think about it, the more uncomfortable the truth becomes. We didn't replace T-Rex. We became it. Humans are not physically descended from dinosaurs, but we are spiritually parallel. We've become the dominant species. We hunt. We shape the land. We drive other species to extinction. We build systems that mimic food chains and hierarchies. We rule. And we do it faster than T-Rex ever did. It took millions of years for the king to fall. Us? We've done more ecological damage in the last 100 years than any comet could dream of. So what does that make us? The survivors? Or the next tyrants? You stare at your reflection and ask yourself, do I rule or consume? Do I protect or dominate? If I met T-Rex today, would I understand it? Or would you just be looking in a mirror? In one word, what do you think humans have learned from extinction? Or haven't? You close your eyes. You remember the nesting ground, the silence of the swamp, the flash of a dying king beneath a darkening sky. You remember its final steps. Not desperate, not scared, just alone. And you wonder, was T-Rex even aware it was dying out?
Or did it walk off into extinction believing the world still belonged to it? That thought hits you harder than any fossil ever could. Because how would we know? When the end comes again, not with a bang, but a warming planet, or a plastic sea, or a vanishing tree line, will we notice? Or will we too walk into nothing, thinking we still matter? Ecologists and evolutionary biologists warn of tipping points, climate thresholds, biodiversity collapse. We're not as safe as we think. We're not as smart as we pretend. And history? History shows that apex predators rarely survive their own success. So maybe the story of T-Rex isn't just about extinction. Maybe it's a warning, a shape in the fossil record whispering, being at the top doesn't mean you'll stay there. You open a book. The page shows a T-Rex skeleton posed mid-roar, as if frozen in the moment before everything ended. And you whisper to it, we're still trying to do better. But are we? The tyrant still walks, not through swamps, through us. In our hunger, in our pride, in our pursuit of dominance even when it's self-destructive. And maybe, in some distant future, when we're bones beneath cities, another species will study us and ask the same question we asked of T-Rex. Why didn't they stop? Maybe extinction isn't the scariest part. Maybe it's not knowing you're extinct until it's already too late. You step outside. The sky above is clear. Stars burn cold and distant. You listen. No footsteps. No roars. But somewhere, in the back of your mind, the earth still trembles. Because the king may be dead. But the kingdom, it's still vulnerable. One more chapter remains. One last look into the fossil mirror. Next time, we uncover the full truth, not just of T-Rex, but of what it means to rule, to fall, and to be remembered. The true legacy of the tyrant, and what it says about us. It ends not with extinction, but with a story. And now, you're the one telling it, not as a paleontologist, not as a survivor, but as a witness, because you walked where it ruled. You stood beneath its breath. You heard the earth remember. And you came back with something far heavier than fossils. You came back with meaning. Let's say someone asks you, years from now, what was the T-Rex? What do you say? Do you talk about the teeth? The size? The power? The dominance? Or do you say something quieter? Something like, it was the last animal to ever rule the earth by itself, and the first one to lose that rule not to another predator, but to time. Because T-Rex didn't lose a fight, it lost the planet. You stare at its skull again, not the real one, just an image glowing softly from a screen. You pinch to zoom. You look into its eyes, and you realize this is not a monster. It's a monument. A monument to what evolution can build, what the earth can house, what dominance can look like, and what time always takes back. The bones of T-Rex are more than just museum pieces. They're data. They've helped us map mass extinction timelines, understand predator-prey dynamics, even inspire engineering and design. They show us the limits of power and the consequences of imbalance. They teach not just science, but humility. You think of the timeline. 66 million years ago, extinction. 1902, first bones found. Today, we still argue over feathers. And that's kind of beautiful, because it means the tyrant is still evolving, not in biology, but in memory, in conversation, in us. You walk past a classroom. A teacher is showing students a plastic T-Rex toy.
They're laughing, shouting over each other. It was huge. It could eat anything. No way it had feathers. You smile, because they're not wrong, and they're not right. They're just keeping the king alive. If you've made it to the end, comment with one word: legacy. Let the king hear you. You sit on a park bench. The wind picks up, and for a second, the sound of rustling trees becomes footsteps, and you don't flinch. You welcome it, because the memory of the tyrant isn't something to fear. It's something to carry. You close your eyes. You picture it one last time. The tyrant, at its peak, a silhouette on a ridgeline, tail sweeping like a pendulum, teeth catching starlight, eyes watching a world it thought would never change. And for that moment, just that moment, it's alive. Not in the jungle, not in the dirt, not in the lab, but in you. Maybe that's what immortality really is. Not genes, not clones, not de-extinction, but a story so powerful, it survives without breath. A shape so unforgettable, it leaves footprints in memory, not just mud. The tyrant is dead. Long live the tyrant.